Okay, welcome back to the Success Money Marriage podcast. I'm Steve Siebold.
And I'm co-host Dawn Siebold.
I'm co-host Steve Siebold. We're glad you're here. We appreciate you guys listening to our podcast, watching our podcast, or any way you consume podcasts.
This is a really important topic, I think, for couples working together.
Very important.
What we're talking about
Very
today.
important. I mean, communication is such a big part of this whole thing. Before we get started, though, I want to encourage you guys to subscribe. If you haven't already, subscribe to the podcast, successmoneymarriage.com. Top right-hand corner, you hit subscribe, give us your name and email, and we'll alert you through email every week,
right?
To that we have a new episode, and go from there. So we appreciate it, guys.
And then they can always go back and watch episodes we've done before, right?
Yeah, or listen,
same thing.
Either way.
Yep.
Absolutely. SuccessMoneyMarriage.com.
I think it's important to know that they're not strategically in order. You can go back and listen to any of the podcasts.
They're random.
Random
thoughts.
Random.
From Steve and Dawn.
Mostly
Scary
Steve.
stuff. Scary stuff.
Mine are not random.
Yours are scary.
Well,
Mine are random, yours are scary.
That's true. Good combination.
Exactly. All right, so today we're going to talk about, communication, obviously, with your partner is so important. It's more important, I think, because you're in business together, you're in life together, and it never really ends. It's sort of a 24/7 kind of a thing.
Well, and you're in love.
Right.
So you get hurt quicker.
Right.
You're romantic, you're in love, you're intimate, and then you throw business on top of it. So it's not always an easy path to navigate.
Exactly. There's a lot of dynamics going on here. So it's so the question we have that we would encourage you to talk to your partner about is what business goals, specific in the context of business, that's what we're talking about. What business goals and dreams do you have that you share with your partner? Because obviously the direction of your business is going to be determined by, hopefully, your goals and dreams.
Right.
And they need to be goals and dreams you share.
Right.
Otherwise, one person's going one way, one person's going the other, especially if you're a small business and you're just leading, you're a couple leading the business. Where's it going?
Yeah, and I think we should clarify that it's not your to-do list every day. These are the bigger visions.
That's the big picture.
Yeah, so I'm not saying, we always get together, debrief at lunch and say, okay, here's what I'm working on, here's what you're working on, here's my goal for today, here's my goal for the week, here's what we need to get done, here's, what I need you to, get for me to get if this isn't the to-do list. We'll talk about that on another podcast. This is a big vision. This is going out 5 years or 10 years.
Right.
Or, even working backwards. I talked to a lady this week that does private coaching, and her goals, they start backwards, like death day. I'm dying today. What do I want to get accomplished before my death day? So however you communicate it or work it out, this is the bigger vision, not just your to-do list.
Right, exactly.
Both are important, but today's big vision.
Well, I think if you're on this, not the right page, but the same page with your partner when it comes to goals and dreams for the business, that makes a big difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because you're both going toward the same thing.
Right.
I remember when we first started our businesses, Stephen wanted a mansion you wanted an estate.
Estate.
Since you were 20, 21?
Yeah, because I grew up on the junior tennis circuit, and I saw these kids with they lived on these estates. I'm thinking, they got tennis courts in their backyard. I'm like, where are these people?
Right.
Where do these people come from, these rich people? It's ridiculous, Like we play at the public courts.
Yeah, but you had pictures on your vision board from the time you were probably 21, 22.
Yeah, because I kept going. I would train at their estates, and I thought, that's the coolest thing I've ever seen. I got to live on an estate. Why not?
Well, I know. So when he first came to me with that vision when we were in our early 20s, I grew up in an apartment complex. And so my vision was to have a really small house with really small rooms, very quaint, because that was as big as my vision had been at the time. And I just wanted a nicer, smaller place because where I lived was nice, but I wanted a little bit more, you always want more than what you grew up with, right? So I really did not want, I'm like, I remember going, what do we need an estate for? We have no children,
right?
We have dogs, but how big does it need?
We have you.
Well, I don't need an estate to live on.
You're like...
Did you just call me a dog?
No, a child.
Oh.
Big child. No, I mean...
I said we don't have children. We have dogs, and we have you. And I'm like,
I was like, no.
Yeah, exactly. You can't take that back. Some things, you just never forget. But no, I just remember that was something we both had to work through because I did not want a huge estate and the responsibility.
And here we are at the Bone Allen Mansion.
We are at the Bone Allen Mansion.
A very small 6-acre, 5-building estate.
Other than our offices, the one room we spend our most time in when we're doing some relaxation or rest and recovery is this really small, cozy little room.
Yeah.
So my point is, like, we kind of have both, but
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it was just hard for me to visualize, and it took me some time to get used to the idea of growing a vision that big. When I really needed, now I want to. I'm not giving this up.
Yeah, you like it now. Yeah,
But I think it's
exactly.
just funny.
Just to be clear.
I think it's funny. We have, I don't know how many rooms in this. 22 rooms.
Yeah.
22 rooms
In the main house, yeah.
in the main house, but where we spend most of our time is in a 14 by 14, very cozy, very decorated, very family oriented. It's very warm, and so my point is sharing your vision will make a huge difference in both of you going toward the same goals and toward the same vision, which I think is really important.
Well, yeah, because you're talking about it all the time. I think maybe the first time I can remember, I mean, where we really talked about it a lot, it was probably before this, but when we were going for the lake house. We both wanted a lake house, and we wanted a really nice one, like a really nice one. And we were making pretty good money,
Right.
And at the time, and so we had this whole thing. We laid it all out. We put out pictures on the vision board, and every time one of us would complain about the business, we'd say, "I got 2 words for you."
Lake house.
Lake house. And we go back to work and
Go
sell
back to
something.
work.
And we were really together on that one. And it took us, I don't know how long, a couple of years, but we got more than we ever dreamed of.
Right.
And that lake house was unbelievable.
Yeah, and it's more fun because you're going toward it. I mean, before we bought the lake house, we spent endless hours looking for lake house furniture and visualizing what that would look like together, and looking for lake house, lots and houses. And we visited, I don't know how many lakes on the East Coast,
geez, yeah.
because our
Wow.
main resident was in Florida, so we wanted to stay within easy flight or easy drive. But it was really great for our vision to continue to grow because we were both looking for the same thing.
I remember when we took that helicopter tour. They took us up in a helicopter in North Carolina. We're up in the helicopter. And
Lake Kiwi, right?
Yeah, Lake Kiwi. Yeah, the cliffs. We wanted a one on. We decided a mountain. Well, sort of a mountain, kind of a mountain, small mountain, overlooking the lake. And they take you up in a helicopter, which I thought was one of the coolest things ever.
Yeah,
I
it
thought,
was
okay, we
very
might
fun.
need our own helicopter. This is cool.
But it really, really helped our vision. It really.
I wasn't done with my story.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
This is a good story.
Oh, I thought you were
Why
done.
are you being so nice today? You're scaring me. You're
Yeah.
being really overly nice to me, and it's weird. It's freaking me out a little bit. What'd you do?
Because I want to go on the boat Sunday.
Okay. All right.
I was going to ask you later.
Don't whisper. We're on a podcast, Donnie. You don't whisper
Well,
on a
that's why I'm
podcast.
being nice.
It's a microphone. It's going to
Okay.
pick up everything you say. Okay, never mind.
Of course, I'm
Freaks
looking
me out
for
when she's
something.
really nice to me. It's like,
I'm looking for something.
I don't know. She's got
All
something
right, finish
going
your
on.
story.
Now I can't remember what I was talking about.
That's exactly right.
'Cause it
That's
was
why
the-
I cut you off.
Oh,
because
yeah,
you were
exactly.
done. You
No.
should have been done if you weren't.
No, it was the lake house. Oh, no, it was the helicopter. Anyway, so we're in the helicopter. They're taking us up to this place, and they're like, here's they're yelling, here's the we're gonna build the house on the cliff.
Right.
And the guy goes, Kevin, see that house right next to it? That's Kevin Costner's house. And we're like, oh, that's really cool. And Kevin Costner.
Of course, I wanted to move there right
yeah,
away.
of course, she's like, we'll take it. We'll take it right now. Kevin Costner.
We'll pay full price.
And they went full price, of course we will, yeah. And then I remember them telling us we went down, it's a side story, but we went down on the helicopter. I mean, got off the helicopter, we didn't go down. And they were saying, well, we're going to have to build the side of the mountain to crush it. And we're thinking, oh, geez, we might be a little in over our head. So we said, thank you, we'll be back. And we ran away, never came back.
We were
'Cause that was a
in
little
over
above our
heads.
price range.
It was, but it was
was,
so
yeah.
fun to be able to do it together and have that same vision together and work together and having that vision, come to reality. So
Yeah, and it's being on the same page. I mean, that's the whole thing. And then of course we got that, and that was really well. I remember the bigger thing was the view. And again, I guess that's the whole thing. And we're just using our own example because that's the one that we know. But we had that we cut those pictures out of the view of the lake. That was our big thing. And when we saw this one on Lake Lanier in Georgia, we walked in. It was a spec house and it wasn't done. We walked in and we walked right to the lake as we both always did. We didn't care about anything about the house. We just want to see the view. And it was like 60 feet above the water, so hanging right over the water, 3 stories, unbelievable.
it was in one of our pictures.
Yeah, we were like, that's it. And then I
That's the
remember the
picture.
lady saying, well, here's the kitchen. It's going to be, we're like, yeah, we don't care. We don't care about the kitchen. All we care about is the view. And it was all water. It's all you could see. It was crazy.
It
view.
was actually one of our pictures. But I think also too, not
Well, it
just
looked like
talking
it
about
anyway,
it sure
yeah.
looked like it, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think too, when you don't have that same vision, it's helpful that you're on the same page to walk each other through, okay, let's see what this is going to look like. Because I remember remember when we had closed our office back in, we were, I think, almost 38 or 40 years old. We closed the office. It just was, Steve and I running, everybody was virtual. We still had people working for us, but virtual, not having to go into the office.
Right.
And then Steven came up and said, hey, I think I want to open an office and scale the business. And I was like, okay, let's walk that through, because we literally were like, okay, for years we're like no employee. Well, we had employees, but they worked from home. But
Right.
do we really want to have to go to office every day? Do we really want to have to check in? Do I have to manage people? And we really walked I walked Steve through. Do we want to get back into that lifestyle? Because it was completely different than the lifestyle we had before. But if you don't have that vision and you don't have a partner that's willing to walk you through and say, okay, here's what that actually looks like. A lot of times we've said, okay, maybe not.
Yeah, right. When you tell the reality.
So, I wasn't thinking that far into the vision of what that's going to look like. So I think it's also important to stand up and say, hey, that's not what I'm looking for, because these are the reasons. I'm terrible at managing people. I don't want to have to clock in every day. I don't want to be responsible for other people's families. Then we start you're starting to have to make enough money to pay for everybody that you got involved. So I think it's really good that when you're talking about your vision, talk it all the way through, make sure you both agree the pros and the cons, and then make a decision from that.
Yeah, and I think I totally agree with that. And it also goes with the money. It's like, when we started making, we were making really good money. And we talked about, okay, what if we instead of, whatever we were making at the time, we made 3 times as much. And I remember we were talking to one of our mentors, advisors, Larry Wilson, and he said, what are you going to do with all that money? If you make that kind of money, you're already making good money. But if you make 3 times as much, what are you going to do with it? I mean, and I said, well, I don't know. And he said, well, that might be something to think about, because if you're going to sacrifice for that, then you want to make sure it's worth it.
Never thought to ask that question.
It's a good question.
Never
what do you do with it?
thought. And then when we look back,
more is better in terms of money. I get it, but if you're going to have to sacrifice for the more, which you're going to, one way or another, is it worth it? If it is, great. If it's not, well, then it's not so great.
Right. But I never thought to say, I think you and I always
I never did
we
either.
always built the business not for the money, but to see what we could do.
Yeah.
But
the money's part
I
of
think
it.
a lot of people do that. Of course, the money will follow.
I mean, you have to have money to live.
Yeah,
so.
of course, I think the money will follow. But I think a lot of people, couples that are in business, whether it's network marketing or you own your own small business, it's fun once you start having the success to go, okay, how far can we take this? And we got caught up in that for several years. How far can we take it? How far can we take it? And then all of a sudden you wake up one day and you go, okay, we've taken it as far as I want to go.
Well, yeah, because there's trade-offs.
Use trade-offs, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I think the older we've gotten, the more we realize that, we're certainly workaholics, and we certainly still like making the money and still like producing, but there's a line now, I think.
Well, I think it's different for everyone.
I just noticed it as we got older.
Changes, yeah.
But that vision's changed. Our vision has completely changed since when we were in our 40s and our 50s.
Right.
So I think it's just always good to communicate. And if it's not your vision, make sure this is what you're tied to that partner doing. You want to make sure it's equally beneficial to both.
Yeah, you want to be on the same page. That's what counts. When you're on the same page, you're unstoppable, and you're not, then you're kind of suffering. It's you're kind of fighting each other, which is no good. So make sure you negotiate. If you have to negotiate your way to the goals and dreams, say, okay, well, here's a compromise, like you do everything else.
Right.
When you have to, you compromise and meet in the middle and go from there.
Yep.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
No, just communicate the vision and have fun with it. I think one of the best times we've ever had is moving toward a vision that we hadn't gotten yet.
Oh,
so
yeah, definitely.
It makes all the hard work that much better.
Absolutely. Good stuff. Okay. All right, guys, we appreciate you listening, watching. As always, make sure you subscribe, successmoneymarriage.com. Subscribe, and we'll get the email out to you every week to let you know we have a new episode. Thanks for watching. See you next time.
Bye-bye.